Story begin with a girl lifts her hand to the glass and shows her name, Tsukiyoshi Sakuya, as if stating a fact carved into fate. She reveals the truth that she will soon die, her voice calm and heavy like a curse already accepted. Some nuns stop by the door with hands still raised pressing the bell. Sakuya stops as the voice says Tsubaki-kun is here to pick her up and urges her to hurry and get ready. She replies okay, soft and obedient, while unease settles deep. Outside, Tsubaki waits in silence, unaware that the night has already begun to watch them. The bell rings, and Tsubaki reacts with a quiet sound, his hand pausing at his collar as the name Tsukiyoshi hangs on the door like a warning. Voices break in with light smiles, calling out that it is Nidzuma and offering a casual morning greeting. Tsubaki turns, caught between relief and dread, as normal words clash with the curse already spoken. Tsubaki grips his bag, breathes, shadows pressing close as doubt settles in. Silence answers first as no response lingers, even though a classmate wanted to talk to him. And someone mutters that guy has been like that since middle school and should just be ignored. A greeting breaks through cutting the quiet like a warning. He exhales, sensing something off as the moment turns heavy and watchful. Sakuya bursts in with an apology and admits she was late, her smile bright and unaware. Tsubaki answers that it is fine and offers a simple good morning, his calm words hiding a brief hesitation. The thought follows that he is her childhood friend, Nidzuma Tsubaki, a fact that sounds harmless but feels cursed. Sakuya exhales as she says she has been having nothing but bad dreams lately. Tsubaki answers that it is because she sleeps in so much, smiling as if brushing it off. The river and town pass quietly behind them as their familiar conversation moves forward. Beneath the normal words, the bond feels old and unbreakable, like something that refuses to fade. Sakuya calls out to Tsubaki and speaks about how they have always been together since they were young. She walks beside him and says they have already been in high school for a week, asking if he has been able to make any friends. Tsubaki listens and answers that he does not need any, his tone light but distant. Tsubaki turns with a tense look as he says she keeps asking him that. A sharp warning cuts through with "look out," breaking the moment too late. Tsubaki jolts, a baseball ball as danger rushes close. The bag slips and a sharp impact from the ball follows as Sakuya gasps and clutches her chest, the shock cutting through her breath. A baseball player quickly apologizes and admits it was his fault. He reacts in surprise and blurts out that those reflexes are crazy, trying to laugh it off. Tsubaki thanks Sakuya and apologizes, asking if she is hurt, and she answers not to worry about it with a light nope. A quiet remark follows that Tsubaki-kun is very unlucky, said plainly and without comfort. It is noted that he has had this predisposition for a long time, and now it seems to be affecting people around him too. Because of that, he avoids making friends on principle, moving forward as the weight of it stays close and watching. Sakuya says they have been together for so long even while living across from each other, then quietly admits worry that he will be lonely when she is not here. Tsubaki reacts in shock and asks what "not here" means, his steps breaking rhythm. Sakuya laughs softly and says she is a grade above, claiming the role of Wani-san with a playful smile. Tsubaki looks unsettled as her light tone clashes with the weight of her words. Tsubaki closes his eyes thinking about that promise and wonders if she forgot, his face tight with quiet doubt. Sakuya walks beside him and asks what while he answers nothing and brush it off. A teacher's voice cuts through saying homeroom is over and warns that there has been a suspicious person around recently, so everyone should be careful on the way home. Then in the dojo, Sakuya grips the practice sword with sweat on her face and breath sharp, her focus intense as sword cuts the moment. Voices praise her motivation and call her Sakuya, saying she can become stronger, and she answers with an eager yes that burns bright. Someone teases that her boyfriend is here to pick her up. Tsubaki snaps back in panic and denies being her boyfriend, his reaction louder than meant. Sakuya asks if it is rare for Tsubaki-kun to pick her up, her tone light but searching. Tsubaki explains there was talk about a suspicious person and says since it is dangerous, he figured they should walk home together, and adds he is off from work today. She brightens and declares she will definitely protect Tsubaki-kun, stepping closer with sudden confidence. He snaps back not that, and clarifies he meant he would be escorting her. Sakuya laughs softly and calls Tsubaki kind, her tone light but knowing. Tsubaki turns his face away and answers that this much is normal, sweat tracing his cheek as the truth presses close. He thinks that when it truly matters, he can do it for Sakuya, the promise forming before fear can stop it. Sakuya suddenly steps in close and grips Tsubaki as her face nears his, her breath steady and intent. Tsubaki stiffens with wide eyes as his balance slips and his bag presses between them. A sharp jolt follows as the moment breaks and shock flashes across his face with a hard what forming without sound. From the right, a pot suddenly falls from the second floor and crashes down as Tsubaki freezes, shock cutting through his breath. A mom grabs her boy at once and apologizes, asking if them is okay and blaming it on a careless prank. He answers with thanks, still unsettled, as Sakuya stays close and says it would be better if he stayed with her. He agrees without hesitation, the moment tightening between them. Sakuya walks a few steps ahead beneath the shrine gate while Tsubaki follows, the path quiet and watched. She leans close to a stone figure, absorbed, while he points and calls out to her from behind. She turns with a smile and says this walking trail is nice, asking if he agrees. Tsubaki answers yeah, his voice soft, as the peaceful scene settles with a calm. Sakuya pauses and reacts with confusion, noticing something out of place and questioning it. She looks closer and calls it a guardian snake, pointing out how unusual it feels. She wonders if it was there before. Tsubaki answers that it was placed recently, brushing it off as nothing. The statue watches in silence, and the calm feels thin. Tsubaki says it is new, but somehow always covered in wounds as his hand rests on the statue. He adds that he has been cleaning it every day, but there is no end to it, and wonders if it is a child's prank. He lowers his voice and calls it a poor thing while stroking its head. The thought appears that Tsubaki always seems unsociable and pushes people away, but that he is only misunderstood. Another thought follows that he is really a very kind boy, and Sakuya quietly accepts this as something already known. Sakuya looks forward and begins to speak, then stopping on a soft confession that never fully forms. Sakuya hesitates with a quiet thought forming as her eye lingers, something unspoken pressing close. A dark presence watches with narrowed eyes, heavy and aware. Tsubaki turns back and asks if she would like to go shopping with him, the words cutting through the tension. The small bonsai shines and pulls attention as something quietly amazing. Tsubaki reacts first and says it is so cool, his focus locked in. He decides that the next paycheck will go to buying it, even while admitting a smartphone should come first. The thought follows that a smartphone is a luxury item, said without judgment. Sakuya suggests maybe she should get into bonsai too, her tone light and sincere. Tsubaki freezes and blurts for real, surprise clear on his face. He continues that if he wants to get into something, she could help him and learn to play shogi instead, so he would not have to keep playing by himself. She watches her smile and thinks he looks so cute. Tsubaki clears his throat in a small panic as he suggests that he could teach her if she would like. He questions why it is so sudden, his voice unsure and rushed. Sakuya laughs softly and says there are many things she still wants to experience in her life, her smile calm and sincere. Tsubaki turns serious and says something is wrong, his voice careful but tense. He adds hey and says Sakuya has been acting strange today. Sakuya looks back with closed eyes and stays silent, caught off guard by the call-out. Sakuya tilts her head and asks what that means. Tsubaki reacts with a quiet sound of confusion, caught off guard by her calm tone. She shifts the moment and calls his name anyway, brushing past the question like it never mattered. Sakuya steps ahead and says she would like to bring some incense to his parents and asks if now is okay. Tsubaki looks up and answers thanks, caught between gratitude and something unspoken. She adds that it is late and says he should come back after dinner, sure they would be happy. Sakuya smiles and suggests eating together, already holding her phone as she says she will try asking her parents. The thought after all lands heavy as the moment stretches. Tsubaki hesitates and says it is too late and does not want to impose so suddenly. The truth that Tsubaki is really unlucky. Sakuya watches him walk away and wishes for even just a second longer while a strange stand behind them. That is why Sakuya thinks she wants to be together with Tsubaki-kun as she steps close and reaches for him. A sudden force drives in from behind and a blade sinks into her back, turning the confession cold. Tsubaki cries out as her body jerks and slips from his grasp. She falls hard while he reaches too late, and the moment shatters into silence stained by betrayal. Tsubaki freezes as Sakuya calls out Tsubaki-kun, her voice strained and wet with breath. He shouts for her not to make a face like that, panic breaking through as his eyes widen. The thought after all presses down hard, followed by the truth that this was the only way. Her hand tightens, and the guilt surfaces as the cause is placed on her shoulders. A spirit coils over Sakuya and declares spirit do not pass on yet, demanding she accept my trade. It names her child of man Tsukiyoshi Sakuya and offers for the flesh that seals the threat. Nidzuma Tsubaki adjusts his tie and stands still as the truth settles that he carries unrequited love for Sakuya Tsukiyoshi. Sakuya is pretty, kind, and tall, a presence that naturally draws the eye. She excels in both school and athletics, making the distance between them feel quietly unfair. From the outside, Sakuya seems strong and independent, yet Tsubaki watches her smile and thinks she has always been absent-minded, the kind of girl he could never leave alone. And that is why the thought slips out that if they got married, then as a married couple they could always be together, a soft plea hiding inside the moment as he wonders if that could be true. The thought forms that it might have been just a stupid promise, but hope still lingers that it could have come true one day, and the feeling is real. A quiet but follows as Tsubaki forces a small smile, trying to hold everything together. The word ambulance hits hard, dragging the moment into reality. Nervous laughter slips out in short bursts as pain and fear mix in his breath. Tsubaki panics as sweat runs down his face, hands shaking while his thoughts spiral around Sakuya's phone, his mouth forming broken words about where it is and why everything feels too late. Sakuya suddenly grabs his hand, her fingers cold yet firm, stopping him mid-motion, and in that instant her eyes shift into snake eyes, sharp and inhuman, reflecting something ancient and hungry. Sakuya suddenly leans close and Tsubaki freezes, eyes wide as confusion hits, and the thought slips out that this is happening, shock tightening his breath. His hand twitches while sweat gathers, and the realization settles that it is done. Sakuya kneels there calmly, claiming that she has finally obtained it, speaking of human flesh and human blood, and even human speech with a soft, unsettling certainty. Tsubaki stays locked in place, staring at her as fear and disbelief collide, while her quiet satisfaction turns the moment dark. Sakuya steps closer with a quiet smile, her long hair moving as her calm confidence fills the space. The thought of a woman and a womb settles heavy in the moment, dark and intimate, turning affection into something cursed. Sakuya leans close while her eyes stay locked on Tsubaki, and the broken call turns into a question that hangs heavy. She covers her mouth and releases like a deliberate signal, smiling as if testing her own voice. Sakuya steps forward with a soft, confident smile, one hand resting over her chest as she reveals her true name as Byakuya. She declares herself a white snake, a divine messenger serving the gods, and the air between them turns heavy with sacred danger. Tsubaki stumbles back, shaken by the realization that Sakuya has said something impossible. He grips her and asks if her head was hit and if the wound hurts. She rejects the name Sakuya and states the name is said as Byakuya. Tsubaki panics and insists on taking her to the hospital, calling her Sakuya again and telling her to get on. She refuses immediately and explains that this refusal is the reason a deal exists. She turns her face away and decides now is not the time to speak. She thinks that if she loses sight of that child, he will go unpunished. Tsubaki stiffens in her arms, shock spilling from his face as the truth clashes with the girl he knew. He stares at her and questions whether she is really the same person. Sakuya pulls Tsubaki close, her grip firm and intimate as her calm smile hides something dark. Sakuya suddenly declares that she will increase her speed, warning him not to bite his tongue as he panics and begs her to wait, her hair cutting the air as her steps strike the ground too fast to feel human. As they move, his eyes widen as he stares at her back and demands to know who this person is. Tsubaki's thoughts spiral, and he wonders what Byakuya is, questioning whether someone has taken over Sakuya's body or if this presence is a divine messenger, then denying it and fearing what that would mean if it were true, realizing the girl carrying him speaks with Sakuya's voice but moves with something ancient. Sakuya calls herself Tsukiyoshi Sakuya and asks where he disappeared to. Tsubaki answers that if the misfortune belongs to someone, then it should have happened to him. Tsubaki breaks and asks why it always happens to the ones he loves. She holds him and tells him not to fear fate, possession, or worry, and says this great calamity must not touch him. Sakuya steps forward and says this is because of her, then her movement snaps sharp and final as her strike lands and knocks the enemy down hard, petals cutting through the moment while the body crashes and slides. Tsubaki watches in shock as the enemy falls helpless, the sound heavy and real, and Sakuya stands calm and smiling. Tsubaki sees the enemy lies and shaken, watches her choose violence as protection. Sakuya stands smiling with blood on her clothes and says that from today no fool should do wrong. She declares herself a white snake that brings good fortune. She promises to punish them in Tsubaki's stead. A quiet room holds a framed photo and burning incense as the television speaks and moves the story forward, saying on to the next story and recalling last night on the streets of Kyoto's S Ward. The broadcast states a man believed to be behind a series of slasher attacks was found stabbed. The voice continues and says he was pronounced dead on arrival to the hospital. Tsubaki sits frozen before the screen, breath caught, eyes wide, as the words stab deeper than the crime itself, knowing something. Sakuya greets the morning with a bright smile, says she came to pick him up this morning. Tsubaki freezes and softly calls her name, and realizes it is Sakuya. The moment feels gentle but heavy, and the thought of last night lingers behind the calm like a quiet curse. Tsubaki denies it and says it was not real, pushing the thought away like a bad dream. Sakuya answers calmly and says no, explaining that outside the true name should not be spoken and that a friend's name is enough. She states with certainty that the name was already informed and that the truth cannot be undone. She leans in with a quiet smile and says that when they are alone the name is Byakuya. Tsubaki tries to call Sakuya and struggles to speak while standing frozen. Sakuya turns at the door saying she is off, thanking her mother as the mother warns that Sakuya forgot her gym clothes, and Sakuya answers lightly and keeps walking. Sakuya leans close to Tsubaki and calmly says sooner or later she will become Tsukiyoshi Sakuya, and the words sink into him like a curse. His eyes go wide in shock as his thoughts spiral. Tsubaki watches her smile with gentle confidence as a quiet thought forms about replacing Sakuya itself. While in the way hear the news about the reverse slasher attack. Someone reacts in disbelief, noting how crazy it feels that the one stab turned out to be the criminal, and answers that it might still be a good thing in the end. Sakuya walks ahead with a soft smile, saying that now nights feel easy and safe, while Tsubaki follows in panic, wondering how ease is even possible. Dark thoughts crush him as he realizes someone was killed in Sakuya's body, and fear twists into anger. His mind spirals, worrying that witnesses would blame Sakuya and see her as the killer. The words white snake surface like a curse as his breath shakes. Then Tsubaki suddenly asks to be killed, his voice gentle and terrifying. Tsubaki says that if a human body is what she wants, then he will give hers to her. He stiffens and shouts that Sakuya will not accept it, her voice sharp with fear and refusal. Sakuya tilts her head, dismissing the idea of desiring a human body as absurd while shock ripples through Tsubaki. Then she explains with chilling honesty that this woman's flesh was obtained so marriage could exist. Tsubaki's face twists in shock as the word wed forces its way out of his mouth, his breath breaking as he demands why it has to be with her. Sakuya pulls him close without hesitation, her arms firm around his shaking body, smiling as she answers with a quiet certainty that it is him, only him. The school stands cold as the thought lands that this thing is not Sakuya, the realization cutting sharp through the moment. The white snake keeps wearing Sakuya's face for the whole day, smiling and waving through the halls while neither classmates nor teachers notice a single thing wrong. Not one person sensing the quiet lie moving between desks and doors as normal life keeps going. She adds that since sharing her memories, acting like her is easy, though the body still feels unfamiliar and needs adjusting. Sakuya walks with the crowd as voices drift about hunger and going home, while she calmly thinks that kendo has been especially troublesome and that human manners and etiquette make no sense at all. Tsubaki thinks about needing to find a way to bring Sakuya back, admitting that he does not know if she is even still alive to begin with, and wondering what should be done next. His body jerks as a sudden shock pulls. He cuts in with an excuse about being lost and coming from the upper class, calm but distant. Sakuya stands there in silence, listening as the casual words pile up. A sharp slam echoes as Sakuya stops and watches, while an upperclassmen turn with bored faces. Voices overlap about Tsukiyoshi never coming no matter how many times asked, about karaoke invitations, about going home together instead. Sakuya hears the cold judgment that she is way out of his league, her face steady as the words cut close. A weak laugh follows, brushing it off by saying a little is fine, while the comment about them being huge as always slips out like a curse. A man leans in and asks if she has opened up more today. A hand grabs and Tsubaki shouts for them to stop as Sakuya stands behind him, silent and watching. A sharp reaction breaks out, cuts the air, as a sneer labels him a small fry, always clinging to Tsukiyoshi, and claims the name cannot even be remembered. Tsubaki closes in as a cold introduction spills out. Naizuma Tsubaki, Year 1, Class A, spoken like a threat. The voice keeps pressing, saying brats should stay with their mommy and daddy, and declaring that it does not care at all. A man chokes out a rough as she is grabbed and shoved back, shock written all over his face. Sakuya stands in front of him in silence, her back tense and unmoving, her presence sharp and threatening. Tsubaki rushes in, calling Sakuya and telling her to stop, his voice breaking as panic takes over. Someone nearby asks if there is a fight, the question spreading fast through the hallway. Another voice hesitates and wonders if that is Tsukiyoshi, uncertainty mixing with fear. Tsubaki screams Byakuya as fingers dig in with a soft perk. He begged to let go of that person, panic shaking it. She answers with a smile and says got it, sweet and wrong. The body is thrown aside with a dull crash. Laughter hangs in the air, and the name spoken like affection turns into a threat. Tsubaki calls out Sakuya by name and begs her to stop, asking her not to hurt people or any living thing. He pleads with shaking hands as they stand outside, fear clear in his voice. Sakuya turns back in silence, tilting her head as if confused, questioning why anyone who seeks to harm her should disappear, that he does not want something like that, his words cutting through the tension. He gasps and begs, pleased that he'll do anything, the fear breaking his voice. Her fingers lift to her lips and she whispers his name, Byakuya, soft and intimate. The silence between them feels alive, waiting. She goes silent, then says she will restrain herself, her eyes dark but steady. She answers again with a strained, cheeks tense restraint sounding more like a promise made to something unseen. He exhales and thanks her, saying that is a good start, his voice shaking as he adds a quiet thank you. She answers with a low turning her face away as if fighting something inside. He reacts, confused, asking what, his fear creeping back. She bows, and says she would like that thing he always does. She sways closer and pleads, please do it for her. His hand lifts in panic, confusion shaking his voice. Her eyes widen and she speaks suddenly, telling him to pat her, her voice sharp and desperate. He freezes below, looking up her back, memory hit, and saying nothing as the silence presses in. He trembles and says he can pay whenever she wants and asks her to hold back for now. She answers it depends on the situation and promises she will do her best. He swallows and says okay, and that he is worried. She leans close, smiles, and he whispers good girl. Her breath breaks as she says him. She strokes his head in silence, and the hallway feels colder as something inside her listens. The memory strikes her without warning. Tsukiyoshi Sakuya remembers that promise. The words press against her mind like a curse. The child version of Sakuya looks up and asks why he is crying. Tsubaki sits folded on the ground, saying a kid in class hit his forehead and saying he could not be friends with them, saying sorry with his head down. Sakuya kneels close and says that looks painful, her hand gentle as she says they're there and repeats pain fly away like a quiet spell. Tsubaki winces and admits it hurts, forcing a small smile while watching her face. Sakuya answers that she will grow big and strong too. She says getting stronger is the only choice so she can protect him. Small hands cling as they decide to go home together. Tsubaki listens as Sakuya admits that being in different grades means they cannot always be together. The words land softly but leave a wound. The conversation turns darker when marriage appears, the idea that a married couple could always stay together. The thought of getting married slips out, sudden and dangerous. Sakuya stops, understanding crashes in, and she realizes that is it. Sakuya smiles with closed eyes, Tsubaki saying that once becoming Tsukiyoshi Sakuya as promised, that makes Tsubaki her bridegroom, her voice light and happy while the words land heavy. The white snake watches, silent and waiting, as the promise turns into something binding. What sounded like love settles into fate. Sakuya remembers the promise that they could always be together. A cold truth follows, spoken as a rule of the human world and the laws of the country. Marriage is allowed only once they reach 18. Time is named clearly, 8 short years away from her 18th year. The thought feels gentle and cruel at the same time. Sakuya leans forward with a soft fufu, saying until then, this time as they prepare for marriage. She believes they will enjoy spending it together, the words gentle but final, wrapping Tsubaki in a future already decided. Tsubaki stays frozen, looking down as her closeness blurs fear and desire. Sakuya leans close, and says she will be counting on him. The white snake coils around them and names him as Byakuda's white snake's bridegroom Dano. Her hand holds his face, and the promise feels sealed. Sakuya smiles and calls Tsubaki by name, saying he is the one she is destined to marry. Sakuya asks whether the old promise is still remembered and says they should be together. She pulls him close and presses the vow of forever and ever. Tsubaki gasps as his feet hurt and the curse settles. The white snake coils tighter as Tsubaki freezes and mutters her name in shock. Confusion flashes when the snake is recognized as white and her presence feels wrong. Tsubaki jolts awake from a nightmare, breath broken as the image of Sakuya pressing close still clings to his skin. His hand grips the sheets as her name almost slips out, fear and longing twisting together before reality settles in. Sakuya rests close and soft breathing turns into sleep as her weight settles against Tsubaki. His breath catches while her hand shifts and presses him closer, the moment heavy and silent. Tsubaki panics, staring at her and questioning why she is at his house while thinking the door was surely locked. Morning leaks in as Sakuya yawns on the bed, wondering if it is already morning and muttering about getting used to a human biological clock quickly. Sakuya calmly notes that human clothes are uncomfortable and sticking to her skin, adding that she wants to take them off anyway. Tsubaki shouts no, absolutely not, freaking out as she reaches for her shirt. She follows by questioning why humans feel ashamed of being naked, then cuts deeper by saying the issue is not about humans but about morality, leaving him confused. She names herself as Sakuya Tsukiyoshi and asks if he does not want to see it, her gaze steady and unblinking. Tsubaki stiffens as the meaning sinks in. Sakuya leans close and presses the point, calling it nude, forcing the word out while Tsubaki freezes in shock. Tsubaki calls out hey as the morning street sits quiet. Then panic hits when the truth sinks in, and he shouts no, saying he does not want to see it, does not want to see anything at all, unless what stands there is truly Sakuya on the inside. Sakuya steps forward with a quiet laugh and lifts the loose tie, saying fine, she will make do with this. Her smile stays calm while the bag hangs from her hand and the skirt sways with each step. Beside her, Tsumaki speak up and say the body belongs to Sakuya and should be handled carefully. She questions whether showing the navel like that is really appropriate. Sakuya turns back with a brief, confused reaction, as if not understanding the concern. Sakuya lowers her gaze and reacts to the warning, questioning why there is a need to be careful. Her expression hardens as irritation quietly settles. Tsubaki hesitates and struggles to speak, thinking it is unbelievable and starting to explain but stopping midway as uncertainty takes over. Sakuya walks too close with a soft smile while students stare and whisper, her presence heavy and deliberate. Sakuya walks too close and smiles while people stare, and Tsubaki stiffens and says people will start rumors, and she asks why others might think they are that close, and Tsubaki answers that it is not like that but keeps holding on. Tsubaki admits someone like him and Sakuya are not exactly a good match, and his face tightens with doubt. Sakuya pauses and hums, eyes sharp and thoughtful, as if weighing his fear against her calm. Tsubaki drags himself into the classroom, greeting others while admitting the day has barely started and already feels exhausting. He mutters that Sakuya is not always glued to him, even now while sitting in this classroom, trying to convince himself it is normal. He flips through his book with tired hands, repeating that things are fine, even as the thought lingers longer than it should. He considers doing it during Sakuya's club activities and part-time job hours. He thinks about using the school-free internet. He pauses and asks how about that plan. Tsubaki brightens with resolve and decides to investigate the true identity of Byakuya. He explains that people search and post about anything quickly, so the internet might hold information worth finding, and the idea is met with quiet approval as a good plan. Tsubaki urging that everything start right away from today. Then someone greetings pass as he though. A sudden greeting hits Tsubaki, surprise flashing as someone says hello and reacts with shock. The boy presses closer, asking what happened that morning and what kind of relationship exists with Tsukiyoshi-senpai. Tsubaki answers weakly with yes and well, calling it just childhood, the words feeling small. Another voice cuts in, asking him to speak louder. They mentions hearing that the two go to school together every day, wondering if they are a thing, and the question lands suddenly, leaving Tsubaki startled and caught off guard. Another reacts in disbelief, saying no way and questioning it. Someone admits being freaked out by the change. A voice insists it was just childhood friends. quickly adding that she grew into a gorgeous girl, and that fact feels unreal. As teacher enter, ordered everyone back to their seats as the room stirs. Sakuya steps into class 1A and greets the room with a bright good morning while holding the papers, her voice cutting through the quiet. Tsubaki freezes beside her, barely reacting as the greeting lands. Classmates whisper that it is unusual to see her this early, calling it lucky. Others murmur her name with surprise, noticing Tsukiyoshi-senpai standing right there, and the attention snaps fully onto the pair. Sakuya smiles at the class and asks whether everyone has gotten used to high school life yet. She explains that the student council has decided to conduct a survey. She says it is about the school life of all first-year students. She adds that it is anonymous. She encourages everyone to freely write anything, including worries or anything else. Students on the right whisper that she is super beautiful and surprisingly kind, voices stacking as Sakuya stands at the front. Another thought follows that she will continue as student council president this year too, the title settling heavily. Tsubaki watches from his seat and realizes that although she looks gentle on the surface, at her core she is Byakuya. The scene shifts as Sakuya smiles and thanks the teacher, then says she has to go to class B next. Sakuya covers her mouth with a small smile, thinking that this will not do as the thought lingers quietly. With that resolve, she moves on, certain that no one would notice. Her steps swish as she walks away, while Tsubaki watches and realizes she really is sharing Sakuya's memories. Tsubaki studies the screen and steadies his breath, warning himself not to mistake her for Sakuya herself and admitting he has to be careful. His fingers hover, then click, the search beginning in silence. The question on the page asks whether divine messengers can possess people, and the glow reflects in his eyes. Alone at the desk, he stares at the screen and searches what Magatsuki means. The results mention a horror game stream and an open-world role-playing game, yet none of it feels right to him. Tsubaki pauses with a hand at his chin, deciding that Byakuya would not actually tell him the truth and stopping himself before trusting that thought. He shifts, realizing that if Sakuya will return, something must be done first. He admits to himself that the bad luck clinging to his life cannot be ignored. He admits it was his fault, the weight of that truth pressing down as regret floods in. Tsubaki clamps a hand over his mouth as panic rises, and the name Sakuya slips out in a broken breath. His fingers hover over the desk as he leans closer, staring at the evidence in front of him. His thoughts circling the injury from before, and whether it could have been healed by Byakuya's possession. A quiet, fragile question follows, wondering if Sakuya is still alive. A sudden shout down sound snaps to the monitor, drawing out a startled reaction. Tsubaki turns, tense and caught off guard, his eyes still heavy with lingering thoughts. Then Sakuya leans in close with a bright, affectionate smile, casually holding up the plug and suggesting they head home together. Tsubaki notices the club activities ended pretty early today and says it out loud, watching Sakuya from behind. Sakuya replies that it was boring, so she wrapped it up quickly, her tone too casual for how quiet the road feels. Tsubaki mutters that maybe quitting the council is the right choice, admitting fear and hesitation, then hears that he is ignoring Sakuya's wishes and deciding everything alone. Sakuya answers immediately, asking why not, her voice firm and almost inhuman, then declares that she is Sakuya as if the name itself settles the matter. The moment turns sharp and unsettling before she breaks it by saying it was only a joke, laughing it away, leaving Tsubaki frozen in silence, unsure whether the confidence was playful. Sakuya mutters that she cannot stand the smell of sweat on the uniform, and adds that besides that, the day has been exhausting. She asks how it is possible to snuggle up like this, her tone light but wrong. He answers that it is so, the reply flat and unsettling. Silence presses down, as if something unseen has moved closer. Tsubaki hesitates and says that things feel different from the morning, asking if keeping distance is the reason. Sakuya answers that she just does not want him thinking she smells bad. She adds that it is embarrassing, and the moment sinks into silence. He wonders why she would be embarrassed by that kind of thing, confusion spreading. He thinks that first she wanted to be naked in the morning, and now his stomach hurts, the unease growing heavier. She asking if a resignation letter should be submitted tomorrow, as if retreat is the only answer. She cheerfully says she would rather go on a walk-home date. Sakuya turns back with a light voice and points ahead, calling attention to the crossing as if guiding him forward. The pedestrian signal chirps and tells them to cross. Tsubaki follows behind in silence, his steps matching hers, the road opening as they move together. She says hunger has come and curiosity pulls her towards street food, the smile too calm for the quiet street. Sumaki thinks staying with Byakuya until the shift starts is fine, though the timing feels wrong. Sakuya stops mid-step and turns back, asking why Tsubaki is standing there and watching instead of moving forward. Tsubaki frozen by the signal above, as if something unseen is holding him in place. The crossing sign glows and commands movement. He wonders if the light truly turned red the moment he arrived, doubt slipping into his breath. The thought follows that the light stayed red when his steps halted, as if the signal was watching and waiting. Sakuya she wants to try the place, and heard there is usually a long line. A voice welcomes them. Tsubaki wonders how there is no line at all, and how they entered a place that is always packed that an apology follows, and says they are currently out of stock. A frantic woman gasps and cries out to someone there, breath breaking as fear spills forward. A recruiter smiles and asks permission to pray, promising to bestow good fortune with blessed water, while the offer feels thin and uncanny. Tsubaki turns, wondering if a recruiter has just ignored him, the silence answering instead. He thinks something is off. The changes are subtle, but definitely different from usual. She laughs and says it is his turn and tells him to take her somewhere fun. He wonders if that could be the reason after all. She declares herself the legendary white snake of fortune, and the words turn playful but unsettling. Sakuya turns as the question slips through her thoughts, wondering if the reason for this moment is that Byakuya is here. She falls into silence beneath the torii, her presence heavy and uneasy. He walks ahead, then she says let's, and the air tightens. He turns as the path feels wrong. She cuts the moment short and says let's go back. Tsubaki looks around and says this is not where he once lived. He remembers saying he wanted to go back and speaks with forced calm. He asks Byakuya to wait there and insists he can go in by himself. A thought slips out about whether a shrine could help him escape Byakuya. Before the thought settles, Sakuya rushes forward and clings to him. Her hold cuts off his movement, and the moment turns heavy. He jerks in shock and thinks what is happening. She answers that it is nothing strange, maybe another flower pot falling from above, and then denies it at once. She says it is only that she does not want to be apart from him, her voice calm and heavy. Tsubaki calmly asks whether it was not just the smell of sweat that was troubling her. Sakuya admits that it did bother her and says she wants to stay with him more. She pleads without hesitation, her mood shifting sharply. Tsubaki stiffens and realizes this clearly is not Sakuya, sensing the wrongness in her sudden swing. In the workplace, he thinks Sakuya's body has been taken over by Byakuya and decides he should not get too attached to her. He someone call him and says he will leave the cleanup to him again today. Tsubaki answers yes while lifting the broom. The station stands quiet as the thought lingers, and the ordinary exchange feels wrong under it. Tsubaki hesitates and asks why she is still there. Sakuya smiles brightly and says she is waiting for his shift to end. Her presence lingers too close, gentle yet unsettling. He says fine and tells her to do whatever she wants, then walks away as he keeps cleaning. She smiles quietly while he watches, uneasy. He pauses and says oh as a thought breaks through. She asks why this job is being done and why Sakuya never asked about it. Tsubaki calmly explains that at the factory, when a machine stops the whole line stops, and it causes trouble for everyone nearby, then asks if he has ever tried remote jobs. While Tsubaki admits that only delivery work keeps happening and accidents follow him again and again until he ends up fired. He says cleaning is something he can do alone without bothering anyone. He adds that when things get tidy, it makes people happy. He concludes that it suits his personality. She watches from behind, silent, and the quiet hall feels heavier than the words. The scene shifts to Tsubaki carefully shaping stuff with steady hands, as if trying to mold his fate. Sakuya watches with a soft and knowing smile that feels almost otherworldly. Tsubaki pauses as the moment catches him, then accepts it with a small fine spoken under his breath. Tsubaki asks what she is doing and says the towel is dirty, then offers to give a hand. He replies that there is no need to force effort, and says even Sakuya never followed him to his job. He adds that the towel should be returned because it is really dirty. Sakuya smiles softly and explains that the towel is not dirty and that staying close is not forcing anything, then adds that she only wants to stay by his side. Tsubaki stands in silence, holding the towel, with only a pause hanging between them. He mutters what does that even mean, and the words feel thin and unsettled. A A small rat darts forward with a sharp squeak, its shadow cutting across the ground like a bad omen. A startled voice breaks the moment, followed by calling it a rat. She jerks back, voice tearing the air as a scream spills out, a mouse named in panic. The space tightens around them, sound ringing fierce, settling like something alive. He shrugs and says rats are pretty common in places like this, his tone trying to calm the moment. Next, he admits he has never heard Sakuya scream like that before, calling it new while teasing that her scream really scared him. He pauses and looks around, wondering if there might be pesticide spray nearby. She steps forward with a sharp breath and a raised blade, declaring don't to dare think it defeat humanity, adding defiance and calling the lowly creature. The mouse squeaks and freezes as steel cuts the air. He stumbles back behind her, voice shaking as disbelief spills out. He leans in and warns that if that thing is not put away, an arrest could happen for violating firearm and sword possession control law. She stiffens, staring hard while asking if that is really a katana, her voice tight with disbelief. Then panic breaks through as someone shouts no, that is not real, Tsubaki insisting the blade is just a toy, while the tension coils thick between them. She looks aside with a cold breath and says humans are such a pain. He leans closer, uneasy, watching her reaction. The silence stretches and feels wrong. Below, the thought follows that Sakuya and Byakuya are completely different. A small mouse runs off, and the difference settles like a quiet curse. Then in the home, Sakuya suddenly pulls away and says she is going home, her voice rushed and final. He stumbles after her and protests, saying to let him go and that he has to go back home as well. His father stands at the entrance and says he is home, adding that Tsubaki is there too. He replies that it is good to see sir. Sakuya quickly asks if Tsubaki can join dinner tonight. The father answers that of course he can stay. Father apologizes and explains that he just got home a moment ago, then asks if fast food is fine. The reply comes quickly with agreement, and the tension softens as they move deeper into the room. She says she will prepare hot water and mentions taking a shower while it heats up. Father agrees and tells her to go ahead. Then Tsubaki quietly thinks that her parents are still busy with work. Tsubaki offers help with the cooking and says anything is fine as long as the ingredients are in the fridge. The father reacts with mild surprise and accepts the offer. She stands behind the glass with steam clinging to her skin, one hand pressed forward as if reaching through. Then the scene cuts to the table where a finished meal waits, and the thought follows that Tsubaki made this for her, and the food looks so good. They say itida kamasu and thank Tsubaki, saying the food is delicious. Tsubaki brushes it off and says it is nothing. Father suggests it is time for the mother to leave the office and asks why no message was sent. Sakuya turns serious and says the mother has been coming home late these days and that it is dangerous at this hour. The thought settles on Tsubaki's face that this choice is for the best because things would have turned ugly otherwise. The parent checks a phone and warns that Tsubaki and Sakuya should be careful when going outside, the reminder landing heavy. Then Sakuya answers calmly that everything will be fine and promises caution for Tsubaki. She smiles and says she will protect him. He wonders what she is talking about. The words sound gentle, but they linger like a vow that should not be made. Tsubaki bows his head and gives thanks for the meal, admitting he is glad he could be of help. Then Sakuya answers softly that she will head back after washing the dishes, and the scene ends with Sakuya turning back with a quiet, knowing look that lingers between them. Tsubaki falls back with a cry, and the room feels wrong, as if something unseen has already crossed the line. Sakuya steps in, and Tsubaki thinks this is Sakuya's room. She walks ahead in silence. She leans close and asks how about embracing each other. He freezes and asks embrace. Tsubaki freezes as his eyes catch the scattered manga on the bed, his breath hitching while the covers stare back at him. She smiles and Tsubaki says Sakuya reads manga and never spoke about it. She asks to read together. He stiffens in silence. The page opens between them and their shoulders draw close. Tsubaki's vision spins as shock crashes in, his pulse racing while his mind screams about what kind of inappropriate manga this is. Sakuya says Tsukiyoshi Sakuya learned love and strange things through this manga. He answers that Sakuya being like this is unbelievable. Tsubaki freezes with the phone shaking in his hand as his thoughts stumble on what he should do next. Tsubaki lowers his head, still thinking he should say something, his voice caught before it forms. Sakuya leans closer, calm and smiling, watching him struggle without pulling away. Sakuya says holding back is never the best idea. He freezes and listens, She steps closer and offers this body to him, then she calls him her dear husband. The room grows quiet, and the words linger like a curse. Tsubaki bursts out that it is enough, voice shaking as he sits rigid and overwhelmed. Sakuya turns back, startled, her breath caught as his words crash into her. He pushes on, saying using weapons and doing dangerous things must never happen again, saying Sakuya should not just do whatever she wants with her body. He asks if she does not feel sorry for herself, the question cutting sharp and raw. She gasps as the thought strikes her. He insists that Sakuya would never speak that way. She repeats the name, clinging to it. She tells him why it is always Sakuya. The denial echoes, and the room feels wrong. Sakuya snaps back through tears, saying her name was already told, and insisting her name is Byakuya, her voice breaking as she cries that she only wants to make Tsubaki happy. She clenches her fists and shakes, frustration spilling out as she gasps and struggles to breathe through the hurt. He apologizes and says she made her cry. He says love belongs to Sakuya, and a vow to marry already exists. They may look alike, but they are not the same. That difference is the reason. Tsubaki says hope remains that Sakuya's body will be left behind. He says a way will definitely be found to make that happen. She listens while tears fall and words cannot form. The promise hangs between them like a binding spell. Tsubaki realizes he was too hard on her and admits the fault weighs on him. She turns toward him and asks if trying her best would be right. Tsubaki answers softly yes, questioning him back. Sakuya smiles and calls his name, saying she will also try her best. She promises to make him fall in love, speaking as if it is fate already decided. She adds that by then he will not want to let her go. He wonders how her mood changed so fast and says it feels strange, smiling with tears in her eyes. She says that since human form was taken, feelings may be mistaken for love. Silence follows as the smile lingers like something not human at all. He answers that it does not feel right, but she answers she don't think so. The smiling face of Tsukiyoshi Sakuya appears, a soft laugh escaping. He says that is why Sakuya must return. The thought follows that for the same reason distance must be kept, not getting too close to Byakuya, while he decides to try his best to stay away from her as much as possible, because the smile feels too close to something dangerous. Tsubaki sighs that these days feel exhausting. Her mother is greeted with a calm good evening, his name spoken gently. The food he made is praised as delicious and thanked with warmth. Tsubaki apology for the intrusion, paired with a polite good evening in return. Mother hesitates, answering with a small acknowledgement, and the quiet conversation settles like a lingering shadow. He thinks it is tiring to come home to a messy house. Then the thought follows that both parents are surely busy and may be trying to hire a housekeeper. An idea sparks, and the answer comes with confidence that there is a solution. She suddenly suggests hiring Tsubaki to handle the housework. A sharp reaction slips out in surprise. The explanation follows that he is currently working part-time as a custodian and is also an excellent cook. Approval comes easily, with smiles saying it sounds good and that he can come anytime. The decision is declared as settled, and thanks are offered before doubt tries to surface. They ask what Tsubaki thinks, and hesitation hangs in the air. But the moment has already passed, and the choice feels final, as if something unseen has already agreed. She says the house has many empty rooms, and tells him to choose one freely. He freezes in silence as the meaning sinks in. She says they should stay together forever. She stands close behind him, hands on his shoulders, smiling as if sealing a promise. A quiet thought admits there is no way out for her anymore. Morning light hangs over the quiet house as Sakuya says he is working hard and offers help. Steam rises from the pot, while she says the work is going well. He answers that it is fine, and that the job is his responsibility. Sakuya laughs and says a rat was caught in the attic and should be used as a secret ingredient. The rat squeaks and begs to stay still, and the cheer in her voice turns the kitchen cold. Tsubaki says cleaning and dinner are finished, and he is heading out, adding that warming it up is enough when parents come home. She asks where he is going, and says she still wants to play more. Sakuya moves close and presses him forward, saying he must be drenched in sweat and should go take a shower already. Tsubaki freezes and answers that he really has not showered yet. Tsubaki relaxes in the bath, and thinks being able to stretch his legs like this must be heaven. Sakuya suddenly asks if the rent has been getting too expensive lately. Tsubaki refuses the idea immediately, and says the lease cannot be cancelled. He insists on needing his own space, and snaps that being peeked at like that is shameful. He He adds that the place is filled with memories of his family. Sakuya reacts with quiet surprise and questions why the lease should not be cancelled. Sakuya leans closer, saying there is a need to hear about Tsubaki's parents. Tsubaki pulls back and snaps that Sakuya is always trying to shower together, the protest sharp and uneasy. Sakuya raises her hands and Tsubaki states that from a human perspective the act counts as sexual harassment, her voice calm but sharp. Tsubaki scowls and snaps back with a frustrated huff, his face tightening as irritation leaks out. Sakuya grabs and presses Tsubaki cloth to her face, sniffing again and again. Tsubaki freezes and whispers a broken sound, realizing what is being held, the thought of a panty thief flashing through his mind like a sudden chill, while Tsubaki stands caught in the doorway, the night outside feeling distant and cold. Tsubaki lies awake and let out a dry breath. Thinking another day has passed with no leads on Sakuya, he stares into the dark and decides that if Sakuya ever comes back, he has to scold her properly. He adds that after that moment, he will tell her to never do something like that again for his sake. The room feels wrong as that feeling settles, the sense that something is already crossing a line. Tsubaki admitting through restless breath that nights are filled with overthinking, wishing someone could understand the situation. Sakuya leans close and notices the unrest, calmly pointing out that sleep will not come. Tsubaki scare and ask what she is doing there. Then Sakuya answer with a married couple should always stick together. Adds that permission was already taken from her parents to stay in Tsubaki's bed tonight. The parents suddenly laugh, agree completely, declare total agreement, and decide it is settled for Tsubaki. Tsubaki react in shock, ask if this is real. Sakuya suddenly insists that married life is not happening. Tsubaki sits up and mutters that Sakuya keeps saying things Sakuya would never say, that it is really driving him crazy, while Sakuya only answers with a quiet hum and watches him closely. Tsubaki studies her face and realizes that Tsukiyoshi Sakuya seems to have feelings for Tsubaki, the thought creeping in like something forbidden. Tsubaki freezes and shock cuts through his face, while Sakuya leans close with heavy eyes and calmly reveals that Sakuya was thinking about Tsubaki while pleasuring herself. Tsubaki panics and realizes that is why Sakuya bought those weird manga, believing they were meant to learn more about it. Sakuya murmurs that there is no doubt and that Sakuya's feelings are real. Tsubaki jolts and asks for a second, stammering and asking what was just said as Sakuya sleeps beside him. Sakuya shifts closer, breath warm against the pillow. Night wraps the quiet house as Tsubaki jolts at a sharp cry. Morning presses down on the school as Tsubaki eats in silence. He admits staying up all night in the end, the weight still clinging to his eyes. Voices cut in and say it is finally lunch break, telling everyone to go to the cafeteria. Thinking chances say Sakuya is lying and trust is not there yet. A call snaps through the room, shouted across the tables, the sound sharp like a warning. Sakuya leans into Tsubaki class with a sharp smile and calls out to Tsubaki, saying that eating alone is cold and unbecoming. Invite him to the student council room. Lunch settles heavy as Sakuya suggests coming here for lunch break from now on and asks if that is okay, even wondering if the student council room can be used like this. While Tsubaki reacts in surprise and Sakuya explains the other members were never around, always leaving everything to the president and barely showing up. Tsubaki admitting that if Sakuya had asked then a hand would have been given and doing it alone must have been hard. And then the moment snaps as Tsubaki pushes it aside. And Sakuya says anyway let's eat. Sakuya leans close with a dangerous sweetness, urging him to come on, guiding the food toward his lips as her smile feels too intimate for comfort. Sakuya smiles softly and urges eat it while holding the food close. Tsubaki hesitates before taking it in, breath catching as LHM slips out and the bite goes down with a quiet gulp. Sakuya laughs softly and asks if it is delicious while Tsubaki answers, yeah, with sweat still clinging as he mutters that he cooked this and feels oddly exposed. Sakuya hums suddenly declares that it is her turn next, leaning closer as if the moment has shifted. As he says there is no way and no chance, calling it wrong and pushing away the idea of a kiss. Sakuya moves closer anyway, eyes steady, voice warning him not to take his chance as she closes the distance. A chair scrapes hard as Tsubaki jerks back, panic spilling out. Tsubaki stammers okay while still refusing, naming it lusty and forbidden. Sakuya pins him against the desk, grip firm and intimate, the room tightening like a curse. Tsubaki panics, says he cannot do those kinds of things at school, her voice sharp but teasing, while Tsubaki groans and says he really cannot, trapped between fear and heat. She leans in further and twists the rule, saying that means it is okay otherwise. Sakuya breathes near his face and murmurs that Tsubaki is really cute. Another girl steps into the room and apologizes for barging in, her tone casual as her hand still grips her bag. Her gaze snaps forward and stops when she sees Sakuya pressed close to Tsubaki, her arms wrapped around him as his body stiffens on the chair. She pointing and demanding to know who the hell that is, her voice sharp with shock. She says she only stopped by because it had been a while, then snaps and asks what the heck is going on, calling out President Tsukiyoshi by name. Sakuya freezes, eyes dark and unreadable, the tension crawling like something alive across the floor. Sakuya turns sharp and cold, asking what Shimizu is talking about while revealing that the boy is Naizuma Tsubaki, a first year and her childhood friend, her words cutting closer than a confession. Tsubaki shrinks under the gaze, face burning. She claims she was only checking whether something got into her eye and nothing more, her voice trying to seal the moment like a quiet lie. Shimizu in confusion, quietly reacting with disbelief as the words sink in. Sakuya steps forward with calm confidence and tells her vice to trust the president, reminding her that the role exists for a reason. Tsubaki studies her face and admits the senior feels familiar, like someone seen somewhere before. The poster shows Shimizu smiling sweetly as it declares today's Jairu enjoy cherry blossom trip by train 2, her gaze feeling too aware for paper. Tsubaki reacts with a quiet, unease creeping in as recognition settles. The realization follows that it is the person from the subway ads, her presence chasing him beyond the platform. Shimizu rubs her temple and admits she feels guilty for always dumping the work on him, the confession heavy and sharp. Shimizu then exhales and decides it is fine, saying okay then and telling him to take care of it this time. Then leans in and quietly says nice to meet you to Tsubaki. Shimizu Kanna introduces herself with an easy smile, saying the name is Shimizu Kanna and allowing Kanna as a casual call, explaining studies in the same class as Tsukiyoshi while balancing work in the entertainment industry that keeps her away from school, calling it her pleasure as Sakuya listens. Tsubaki stands caught in the moment as Kanna explains the role as vice president was only accepted because Sakuya leads as president, saying it makes things much easier and offering thanks, receiving a simple no problems in return. Sakuya cuts through the closeness with a sharp look, brushing it off and telling them to get out of the love nest already. Shimizu tilts her head and murmurs suspicion sharpening her gaze as she calls out Tsukiyoshi by name, sensing something feels different about him. Tsubaki stiffens as a chill crawls up his spine. Sakuya pauses, asking what that even means and saying it sounds the same as before, Kanna suggesting the feeling might come from not seeing each other for a while and quietly noting Sakuya seems a little different somehow. Tsubaki snaps, eyes shaking, asking if Kanna believes in the existence of divine will, insisting the meaning is that Sakuya is being possessed by something and pushing that the feeling is real to him too. Kanna steps back, confused and guarded. Tsubaki stiffens, sensing something different behind Sakuya's calm eyes. Kanna laughs softly, calling it a pretty cute hobby, her voice light while a sharp smile lingers like a shadow watching too closely. Kanna leans in with sudden warmth, asking if Tsubaki can be friends with their Shizuku, sealing it with a bright insistence that it is great then. Tsubaki falters, whispering Shizu in confusion, wondering who that is as the room tightens. Kanna interrupts with a polite apology and asks for a moment, thanking them for waiting as she speaks and says she understands, promising to come over right away. Tsubaki stiffens, caught off guard, as the words come fast and final. Kanna turns back with a bright farewell, saying she will see them next time, her voice light but distant. Tsubaki blurts out a confused response and tells her to wait, but the moment slips past him. Tsubaki snaps back asking what that even means, admits wanting to find out more about Sakuya's school life. Sakuya's smile sharpens and says that speaking to another woman and even shaking hands sounds like cheating. Tsubaki tight as Sakuya leans close and says something feels wrong. Tsubaki protests that it was just a greeting. Tsubaki admits he cannot even hold a proper conversation with boys, let alone girls, his hands stiff over the desk as the words feel like a confession. He says that since childhood the only person he was ever close to was Sakuya, the name carrying more weight than the room can hold. He adds there is no way he could ever like anyone else romantically, calling it funny while fear leaks through the logic. Sakuya pauses at the doorway, murmuring a small sound of surprise as if sensing something wrong. Sakuya opens the cabinet and calmly declares that from now on this room will be their love nest. The word landing heavy as Tsubaki echoes love nest in disbelief. Tsubaki tries to ground the moment by saying that even after leaving the after-school club, the student council duties still remain. He asks those are the survey results of the first years. She adds that Tsukiyoshi Sakuya is such a handful, agreeing with herself as if it is already settled. Tsubaki answers that Sakuya has always been a hard worker, her voice firm as she reaches for the stack. Sakuya reacts with a quiet really, surprised by how easily her name is judged. He tells her to let him give a hand, tying the help to the fact that she helped clean the station before. Sakuya smiles with closed eyes and says she will gladly take on this tedious job, her tone sweet as she promises it is going to be fun. Tsubaki speaks calmly across the desk, saying Sakuya would never shy away from club and student council work, repeating it as if it is obvious and known. Sakuya's certainty presses down on the room, turning dedication into something heavy, and the thought that Sakuya would never step away settles like a rule that cannot be broken. Sakuya turns her face aside and admits that even Sakuya was only forcing herself to do it, the confession slipping out softly. Silence stretches first, a blank pause hanging between them. Tsubaki reacts with confusion, asking yes as if checking reality. Sakuya presses calmly, asking what else there is and stating that Sakuya handles both club activities and the student council, saying it like an obvious truth. Sakuya tilts the thought further, asking if the concern is about reluctance to work. Sakuya closes her eyes and Tsubaki wonders if what Byakuya just said was a lie, insisting there is no way Sakuya could be like that. She opens her eyes and quietly calls out to him. She steps forward and asks what is known about Tsukiyoshi Sakuya. A quiet breath follows as she states that she is the one who knows everything about Sakuya, inside and out, and says this must be understood. She lowers her voice and explains that not everything can be seen with the naked eye. Tsubaki freezes, staring back as the words sink in. The chair scrapes as Sakuya collapses forward, hair spilling across the table while Byakuya freezes behind her. Her breath breaks. He stares, cutting through the room as fear sets in. He leans in and asks what is wrong, the question hanging like a curse in a quiet room. A dark stain spreads across the desk as something drips, and the name Sakuya is called in shock. A broken plea follows, telling her to wait and begging her not to do this. Her body lies still as a weak breath slips out, starting to say Sakuya before the voice fails. Tsubaki screams her name in panic as the moment collapses into fear and the silence turns cruel. Sakuya folds over the table and cries that her belly hurts, the words bursting out as pain twists her face. Tsubaki jolts forward, eyes wide, repeating belly as if the word itself is wrong. A sharp cry cuts through as she asks if the belly hurts, naming the pain and wondering if this is what they call a period. The answer comes tangled with panic, saying the stomach hurts so much and asking what this feeling even is. The pain rises again, repeated and raw, insisting it really hurts as sweat and fear blur together. Tsubaki urges that the infirmary comes first, voice tight as he reaches for her. Sakuya groans through the pain, breath breaking, then forces a smile and says that if this is what it takes to have their kids, this pain is nothing. Tsubaki snaps back, telling her not to say something like that, panic cutting through his shout. He stiffens under the weight of her arms, sensing eyes and judgment pressing in. Whispers spread as people start to misunderstand the relationship, the hallway watching too closely. She tightens her hold and tells him not to say it like that, calling it only an emergency situation. Sakuya smiles, faintly calls him kind, then confesses love so much while holding Tsubaki close. Tsubaki admits that even though time with Sakuya has lasted since childhood, this is not Sakuya, repeating that this is not Sakuya as if warding something off. He admits never knowing periods could hurt this much. The thought creeps in that when she stayed close, she endured everything with a smile, her closed eyes hiding something heavy. Sakuya clings to Tsubaki from behind and hopes that one day true feelings will be shared, the wish spoken quietly while the hallway watches. The infirmary sign hangs above as Sakuya smiles softly, Tsubaki checking that the medicine was taken. She asking for praise and calling it a good job. Tsubaki explains there are classes this afternoon and a promise to come pick him up at 6. She leans back on the bed and adds a teasing request to visit during break, still smiling while the room feels too quiet. Tsubaki walk away with quiet frustration, calling it the nurse having dozed off again. How irresponsible, while Sakuya lies on the infirmary bed as sleep steals over her. Shock hits first as Tsubaki stiffens with a sharp breath, the sudden jolt cutting through his thoughts. She notices a smell and pauses, sniffing as confusion settles in, wondering if it could be something familiar. The idea forms slowly, calling it a kindred presence, the word heavy and unsettling. Meanwhile, Tsubaki looks up from his seat, unease crawling over him, still searching the truth. Tsubaki searches in silence, questioning what possession is and what a vessel means, fingers tapping as frustration grows when the internet offers nothing but made-up stories and empty lies. He admits he already knew there was nothing useful there, the answers refusing to surface. His thoughts turn sharp and focused as he realizes the only person who can sense Sakuya's changes is Kanna-senpai. Hope settles in his chest, quiet but desperate, as he thinks that maybe she can help him. Shock flickers as a quiet slips out, and maybe even without becoming friends with her the doubt still clings. He admits nothing can be done. Tsubaki stares at the screen and thinks that now, after reflecting on it, Kanna-senpai really did say to be friends with someone, then immediately shuts it down by admitting there is no chance. His expression tightens as the thought cuts deeper, wondering how someone like him could ever make friends with others. The teacher announces that class is over for today and warns that another class will follow, asking students to leave their computers on, while Tsubaki panics at his desk and decides it is break time and he needs to rush to Byakuya's place as soon as possible, his urgency sharp and uneasy, like something bad will happen if he is late. He walks away while a quiet thought forms, hoping her pain eases, and another gaze lingers as someone wonders if this is the person Kanna mentioned, asking if this might be Shizu's friend, while the screen nearby shows human turning into a monster and a new horror game released. Sakuya trails behind Tsubaki outside the school, saying the tummy still hurts and wishing someone could piggyback her home. Tsubaki walks ahead, tense, answering that she was totally passed out until now thanks to the medicine. They walk ahead together as a quiet idea slips out about giving Tsubaki a piggyback ride. In the evening, Mother suddenly calls Sakuya by name and blurts out the truth about fainting at school. Sakuya answers calmly that it is only cramping from the period and there is no need to worry, brushing it off like a practiced lie. Sakuya sits at the table while Tsubaki stands close, and Mother saying she never said the period was this bad before and that the surprise still lingers, suggesting a check with a gynecologist just in case. Mother smiling and thanks Tsubaki for calling, her voice calm while holding the phone. Tsubaki freezes mid-motion with the iron and blurts that it is nothing. Sweat on his face as the room feels too quiet. She thanks him for doing the ironing. The mother lifts the clean shirt with a small flash of pride, noting that it seems dry cleaning is no longer needed. Tsubaki reacts with wide eyes and a soft wow, the surprise cutting through the tension. Tsubaki smiles, and Mom says there is real hope that Tsubaki will keep working here forever. The answer comes quick and warm as Sakuya says it is understood. He mutters that maybe it would have been better to slack off instead, while he protests that cannot do something so dishonest at work. Mom arrives with a calm face and says souvenirs were brought for Sakuya and Tsubaki. Adds that as a thank you, a longtime favorite dish was bought just for Tsubaki, the words careful and deliberate. The sweets are revealed as strawberry mochi, soft and sweet, carrying quiet intention. Tsubaki thanks her and says he will enjoy this, his gratitude soft and sincere, while Mom notes that they have had the same tastes forever, Sakuya quietly thinking of it as her favorite dish. Then a sharp shift as Sakuya's mother leans in and brings up the thing she was asked about, the sudden attention making Sakuya freeze. She beams and laughs, saying wow and thanking Mom, her voice too bright. Tsubaki flinches and mutters a bad feeling creeping up his spine. Eyes catching on the potted plant like something alive watching back, the shogi board appears below, ordinary objects suddenly feeling wrong, the moment stretching thin as curiosity turns uneasy. She spreads her arms and says she prepared this room exclusively for him, telling him to feel free to use it as his private room in the Tsukiyoshi household anytime. Tsubaki freezes, his voice cracking. The room feels too ready, the welcome too eager, and her cheerful words press in like the door already closed, while Tsubaki stiffens and whispers that this looks expensive, watching her smile with a mix of awe. Sakuya clasps her hands and admits she has figured out how to act adorable and ask nicely so parents will gladly buy everything, quietly noting that his parents have always spoiled him. She smiles softly and says she really was loved, whispering Sakuya Tsukiyoshi like a prayer. Tsubaki turns and asks if Byakuya doesn't have any parents, calling her name gently. Tsubaki looks up in silence, eyes wide, the room suddenly colder as her tender words echo where answers should be. Tsubaki freezes mid-breath, heat rushing to his face as the thought slips out and he panics over what was just said, fingers covering his mouth while the words echo too loudly in his head. She leans closer and asks if he wants to know more about her, her eyes shining too brightly, saying she'll tell him, telling him to listen, saying let's see. She murmurs about parents. She adds friends, right, and the air tightens as her voice lingers. Sakuya tilts her head and presses a finger to her lips, asking herself as if searching for an answer. Her face shifts suddenly, eyes wide and mouth open as she states she has none. She admits it feels bad, yet smiles too brightly, laughing it away. She says he's the same as her, that they're all loner, that it's a terrible thing to have in common, and the words trail behind him like footsteps that won't stop. She asks where he is going and tells him to stay in this room, smiling too close. He says no, he has to go home. She laughs and says then she'll just follow him there. Sakuya leans close, her shadow swallowing the space between them, and calmly says how many times must be told, that he cannot run away from her. Tsubaki freezes, eyes wide, breath caught, feeling her presence press in. He wonders if there is really no way out, the thought curling around him like a shadow. He asks himself if it will be like this for the rest of his life, the night pressing closer. He hesitates, whispers really, and the silence answers back. After that, night swallows the room as Sakuya presses close, her weight pinning Tsubaki to the futon, hair spilling like a shadow while his breath stutters beneath her. The same morning, as always, arrives without mercy. Another day begins. She breathes softly in the dark. Without Sakuya, the room feels hollow and watching. She whispers good morning, my dear, her voice sinking into the sheets like a curse. Sakuya sits across the table smiling softly. Tsubaki wonder if this will be a new daily life, her hands folded as if praying for something unseen. Tsubaki lowers his eyes, answering no in his head, feeling the weight of the routine press closer. His pulse tightens, and he admits he has to do something about this. A girl greeting good morning to Tsubaki, she says and asks to walk to school together. He hesitates and asks who she is. She answers that she is a first year from Class A and gives the name Shimizu Shizuku. Her calm voice lingers too long, like she has already said this before. He feels something wrong, as if the morning itself is listening. Shizuku walks beside them and explains that Kanna is Shizu's sister. She adds that Shizu hopes Kanna can be friends with Naizuma and offer some advice. Tsubaki stiffens mid-step and blurts out Shimizu, his grip tightening on the bag while Sakuya turns sharply, surprise breaking through. Tsubaki pauses, caught on that single word like it carries a curse. Sakuya turns away, her cheeks tight as the word friends hangs heavy between them. Shizuku, saying that Tsubaki once said he does not want new friends though, he admits what she meant at that time was different. Shizuku walks beside Tsubaki and forces a strained smile. She tilts her head and cuts deeper, wondering if the messy hatred clinging to him is the reason he cannot make friends, as she insists it is gone now and everything is fine. Her words soft but sharp. Tsubaki answer yes. Shizuku explain answers that Kanna has a messy hatred attached to her too, and people who get possessed have it tough, the words sinking like a warning. The thought follows that Kanna has no friends and no luck either, spoken plainly, as if stating a fate rather than sympathy. Sakuya leans in close and quietly asks what that means, pressing if Tsubaki is really saying such a thing, while Tsubaki freezes and asks what she is talking about. Sakuya suddenly smiles and brings up possession, asking how Tsubaki became possessed and how Naizuma reached that state, saying she wants to figure out Kanna's reason too and demanding to be told. Tsubaki flusters and denies it, saying possessed makes no sense. Sakuya immediately rejects that and asks to be called Shizuku instead, explaining that calling her Shimizu overlaps with the vice president. Shizuku replies says yes and allows any name, followed by Sakuya quickly offering the name Sakuya as well. The words continue, saying that Tsubaki's friends are also Sakuya's friends, spoken with eager warmth that feels too sudden. Tsubaki speaks first, saying shogi can be played for free, explaining that the app lets players face others without paying. Shizuku reacts, amazed, saying smartphones are nice and surprisingly convenient. The excitement lingers around the desk as the game begins to feel too easy. Sakuya watches last, silent and tense. Sakuya shows up in the first-year classroom again, standing rigid with irritation written all over her face. A quiet comment passes that she has come down once more. Shizuka questions whether she has business with Nidzuma Tsubaki and Shimizu Shizuku. Shizuka suddenly calls out to Sakuya, asking to exchange contact info on Insta, leaning in with bright urgency. Saying of course and calling Shizuku a friend too, Sakuya stiffens, then agrees. Tsubaki nearby lets out a quiet laugh, watching closely. He notes that this expression on Sakuya has never appeared before, and calls it funny. Even with Byakuya close by, speaking normally never came easy, and conversations stayed locked away from everyone except family and Sakuya. Standing there now, the confession hangs quietly between them, simple, heavy, and unchanged by time. Time stretches as the memory surfaces, marked by the moment of losing both parents while still young. Someone looks at him and calls the scene pitiful. Another voice snaps for others to stand away from him. A rumor spreads that everyone who stays near that kid meets misfortune. A whisper follows, wondering if it could be some kind of curse. Another thought slips in, asking if that curse explains what happened to his parents. Tsubaki freezes, caught as the words press in from all sides like a quiet supernatural sentence. Concern appears first as Tsubaki mutters that this is bad, the word friends lingering with unease and a quiet denial following close behind. A sudden voice cuts in, Kanna's step in the room, surprised that everyone is already getting along, the reaction bursting out before anyone can stop it. Shizuka cheers and says it is all thanks to Kanna-chan, celebrating with a bright yay, and Kanna saying she feels so happy for her. Shizuka leans in, claps her hands, and asks Tsubaki-kun to be friends too while he is there. The classmate hesitates, wondering what's happening with them. A calm smile appears as Shizuka notes that he is not content with only Tsukiyoshi-senpai, followed by the quiet suspicion that he is now after Kanna the model as well. Curiosity rises when another voice wonders who Tsubaki really is, while noticing that Kanna's fluffy belongings are gone. Confusion slips in with a small reaction of disbelief. Kanna answers that it is one less thing to worry about, and says she is seriously so happy. Kanna admits she has been feeling down after failing big auditions again and again, wondering when she will finally be able to take Shizuku to Tokyo. She accepts there is no point in complaining, and says she needs to work harder by herself. Sakuya urges them to move, saying they should go now and head back to Tsukiyoshi. The group turns to leave together, the decision made without hesitation. Farewells follow, telling Tsubaki goodbye and then Shizuku as well, the moment brief but heavy. Shizuka feels something strange, and admits it feels like someone was staring just now. She brushes it off, and says it is only imagination. Then she leans closer, and says she feels that strange feeling from Tsubaki again. Tsubaki reacts with confusion, and asks what she means. She presses further, and asks why it feels that way. He looks ahead and calls it the key, a path leading to the solution. He thinks quietly, saying Byakuya will also come here during the break, and admitting there is no confidence in explaining everything well. The thought settles and turns into meaning. A hand moves, writing notes fast, as the idea takes shape and the plan begins. Lunchtime finally arrives and Sakuya bursts in with a bright voice, calling Tsubaki by name and urging him to come eat together. She smiles wide and says it is finally lunchtime, pressing the moment with excitement and warmth. Tsubaki freezes for a beat as her invitation lands too close. A tag slips into view showing it is to Shimizu Shizuku from Nidzuma Tsubaki, and the words this surface with quiet weight. Tsubaki steps forward in a rush, face tight with nerves, hands shaking as he forces a wrapped gift out and begs her to please accept this. A quiet thought slips through her smile, pretending to be Sakuya. Another image of Sakuya stands gentle and familiar, reinforcing the plan. Shizuka presses close behind Tsubaki, her breath brushing his ear as she softly calls Tsubaki-kun and says she thinks something, her fingers tight on his shoulder. A soft voice leans close, saying a little punishment is needed, then correcting it as guidance. Tension follows as an apology reaches Shimizu, asking him to still read it. A sharp response answers with got it, while the room freezes for a moment, the words feeling heavier than the actions. Whispers spread as a quiet figure watches, noting that attention is no longer limited to Tsukiyoshi and Kanna, but now even aimed at Shimizu as well. A sharp thought cuts through the noise, questioning who that person even is, while the crowd lingers in uneasy curiosity. The paper slips open in trembling hands, the printed results staring back like a verdict, while Shizuka hides her mouth behind the envelope and blushes. Shizuka decides that if the note is this long, reading until the end is the best choice. The message reveals a quiet request made after class, asking for a meeting at the Ojiki Shrine, signed with Miyazuma Tsubaki's name. Nearby, Sakuya unease settles in, a tense reaction rising as the meaning sinks in. Tsubaki shaking hands and insists that cheating never happened at all. Sakuya slams the truth across the table, accusing Tsubaki of using kindness just to eat in the room and declaring that the real face is finally clear, calling it lies with sharp force. Sakuya bursts out that pretending to be Sakuya is exhausting and admits wanting a date as well, leaving confusion hanging between them. He reacts with a small break in thought, caught off guard by the sudden demand. Sakuya quickly turns playful and firm, saying forgiveness for what happened today will come only if a promise is made to go on a date on the next holiday. Pauses with parted lips, questioning the moment with a quiet really as surprise settles in her face. And after the tension breaks, Tsubaki gives in with a soft, but clear alright fine. The thought settles that no matter what happens, escape will only lead to being caught, so the choice becomes clear. He moves toward the shelf, half deciding, half stalling, while a quiet then follows. He's saying student council work comes first, and a date comes after. She hesitates, wanting to leave now, but the condition stands and the moment locks in place. Tsubaki weighs the words quietly, noting that even for Sakuya the task remains a massive workload, the thought pressing heavy in the room. He reasons that if Byakuya can handle all of it, that alone would prove who stands as the better one, the logic sharp and almost cruel. The words stumble out in order, starting with a Byakuya like that, then a broken admission that liking might exist, the confession that liking has already taken root. Shame crashes in immediately, calling the sound narcissistic and unbearably embarrassing. Sakuya freezes with a soft breath, her lips forming the word like me as her thoughts spiral, the question hanging heavy. Tsubaki glances over from the shelves, caught off guard, his face tightening as if the idea struck deeper than expected. She stiffens, then shouts that she can do it and will give it everything. Shock cuts in when Tsubaki asks if the work will be done alone, doubt pressing hard, until she answers yes with certainty. A calm resolve forms as he decides he knows how to deal with Byakuya now. She thought comes first that Tsubaki liking her means a date, followed by a quiet laugh that tries to hide the tension. Sakuya smiles and says she is happy while holding her books close, her voice sounding too bright. Tsubaki stiffens and answers no. He watches Sakuya sit and read calmly, humming as if nothing is wrong, and he wonders what this guilty feeling is that keeps creeping closer. Tsubaki explained that she is someone who took over Sakuya's body and killed people. The name Taikoku stands silent beside the statue. Shizuka stands alone before the shrine, small and still, as if waiting for an answer that never comes. Shizuka lifts the envelope and says she read it, her voice calm and steady. Tsubaki freezes and thanks her softly, caught off guard by how direct she sounds, admits he doubts anyone would believe this, then says Shizuku is the only one she can depend on now, the words landing heavy between them. Shizuka hesitates, unsure how to answer. Shizuka says there is no reason not to believe the story, starting to explain it with an awkward pause that sounds uncertain. Tsubaki reacts with confusion, the question hanging about what he is saying. Then Shizuka notices tears slipping down Tsubaki's face, and asks why he is crying. Shizuku apologizes and Tsubaki admits being so happy that words spill out, while Tsubaki accepts it and says it is okay. Shizuku asks if that is really true, hesitation slipping through. Shizuku then declares with quiet resolve that she will definitely bring Sakuya back. Shizuka steps closer and speaks first, asking Tsubaki for help, saying there is a strange feeling tied to Kana and that it needs to be erased. Shizuku compares it to working together like a co-op game, framing it as something only teamwork can solve. Tsubaki reacts at once and insists on helping without hesitation, the urgency clear in his voice. Shizuku answers calmly and agrees, saying it is time to do their best together, calling him a friend, sealing the promise with quiet resolve. Tsubaki lifts his hand and freezes, the word friend echoing in his thoughts as it settles into his chest. His fingers hesitate, uncertainty tightening his posture, while the idea feels both close and forbidden. He wonders if friendship is truly allowed to exist for him. Tsubaki grabs at Shizuku and calls out her name, confusion spilling out as something goes wrong, and a sharp cry cuts through the moment. The presence shifts, Shizuku is spoken like a signal, and a voice calmly accepts the situation, calling him human. The smile that follows is wrong as the demand is made without hesitation, ordering that Byakuya be handed over. Tsubaki stiffens as Shizuku pulls close, confusion flashing as the thought rises that this is not Shimizu and maybe it is just like Sakuya. A low command cuts through the moment, demanding that Byakuya be brought over. A hand lifts toward Tsubaki's face as a dark voice presses close, whispering obey while promising release from this misfortune, the shadow wrapping around his thoughts and offering salvation at the price of surrender. The command comes first, demanding Byakuya and calling for the white snake to be killed. The voice insists it must die, repeating that only through death can Sakuya be revived and misfortune erased. It promises that a normal life will return after that act. The word kill sinks in slowly, twisting into fear. Only then does Tsubaki react, frozen breath caught, realizing what is being asked of him. Sakuya lowers her face in shadow and murmurs Byakuya, the name falling like a quiet verdict, and the thought follows that Byakuya will disappear, the promise sounding calm and final, closing the moment with a cold certainty. The words happy echo in his head. Tsubaki clutches his head, voice breaking as he shouts that he does not want to do it, panic cutting through him as her happiness presses against his fear. Shizuka tilts her head, words slipping out too easily as her hand lifts like a careless confession. Tsubaki stiffens as the sound turns into what, the moment lagging behind his own breath. A sharp voice calls out to a human as a blade flashes close, stopping just short. Tsubaki freezes in shock, letting out a broken sound while the presence laughs and mocks him. The voice declares that defying a divine messenger is nothing but a great calamity, calling him a fool and sneering that Byakuya truly managed to win him over. She wonders if ruining him would devastate Byakuya, smiling as the thought lands. She mocks the escape, saying he went through all that trouble only to be tormented again. Shizuka laughs softly, the sound stacking into sharp laughter as a blade turns in her hand like a promise. The blade swings as black shapes coil through the air, cutting between them. Sakuya moves forward without hesitation, casting aside the threat meant to end everything. Shizuku recoils behind her, caught between fear and shock as blood scatters. Tsubaki turns in panic, shouting for Byakuya to get behind him as danger closes in. The voice breaks into joy as Byakuya is came over, laughter spilling out in a twisted confession. Obsession overflows as possession is declared. Sakuya lunges forward and strikes without hesitation, stopping the threat the moment it reaches Shizuku. The impact is sudden and brutal, leaving no space for mercy or doubt. Tsubaki shouts that it is enough and realizes too late that this body belongs to Shizuku. Shock freezes him as Shimizu is called, the breath catching in his throat. Confusion slips into fear as her name echoes between them. Shimizu collapses into his arms, voice fading and body growing heavy. He leans closer and asks if the hand has healed, surprise soft in his voice. She answers that of course the arm was healed, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Worry rises as he mutters about bringing her home, unsure where her house is. He suggests taking her back and letting her rest on the bed, burden heavy in his arms. Her silent gaze lingers. Sakuya turns away and mocks them, questions possessing a human without any contract, letting out a dry huff as the shrine watches in silence. She added they must be getting desperate, calling someone senior with quiet scorn. Tears spill as she grips her head and declares that Byakuya will never return to the shrine again. The wind pulls her hair back while the shrine fades behind her. Shizuku quietly asks what happened, as the building stands still under the dark sky. She stirs and admits that nothing can be remembered. Tsubaki apologizes for letting Byakuya kick her in the face. He asks if the wrist is alright, and she replies it is okay, that there is not even a scratch. Sakuya says they should not go near that shrine. Tsubaki admits it scared him, then quickly denies being scared. She says she barged in to save Tsubaki, and insists that is all it was. She speaks first, reminding him that there was a promise made before, that if she ever wanted it, everything about Byakuya would be told. Then she steps closer and urges herself forward, saying she will tell it now. She leans closer and Tsubaki quietly asks if it could be that, if he was being bullied by the other divine messengers. He looks down, surprised, and does not answer right away. The thought rises quietly that the only people who were ever kind to him remain reflected in her gaze. She speaks softly, saying they were the monks, and then Tsubaki, just him. She continues that every time she was gently stroked by him, she thought that this must be what humans mean by happiness, and that is why. She states that to her the existence of Tsubaki Nozuma is the greatest blessing of her life. While Tsubaki face stiffens beside her, breath caught, the words sinking in slowly. He hesitates and says, "Is that so?" Then he asks what about the curse, saying he still has a million questions, divine messenger. Tsubaki quietly admits that at this moment, what he truly wants is to learn more about Byakuya, his words soft and sincere, as his hand rests on her head and he listens in silence, feeling warmth mixed with unease settle in his chest. He says sorry to Sakuya and promises that he and Shizuku will definitely find another way to save her. Shizuka freezes, eyes widening in shock, her breath catching as she looks at him in silence. Sakuya snaps, asking what is with that stupid look, and that now her true identity is exposed. She will not pretend anymore, and she does not want to be friends either. Shizuka leans closer, demanding if she can roll her gacha for her. She points and says to just press the button right there. She hesitates, then quietly says no. She stares at her phone in disbelief, eyes wide and cheeks flushed, as the thought bursts out in shock that she pulled an SSR in the first 10 pulls. Shizuka blurts out that he is her best friend, calling him friend again and again. Sakuya panics and stammers, asking what and saying he does not want that. She cuts him off and declares that he is definitely her friend. His eyes tremble, filled with unwavering determination. Sakuya screams in anger as she runs, Shizuka shouting for Byakuya to wait, furious at being called that, while Tsubaki panics behind them, covering his mouth and wondering if Byakuya is running away from someone, and laughs lightly, thinking it looks fun. Then Shizuka walks away waving and says she will see him tomorrow at school. Tsubaki hesitates, flustered, and answers with a shy goodbye. From behind the gate, Byakuya snaps and tells Shizuka not to come back.